really long.
I'd like to call the May 24th, 2016 McHenry School District 15 Board meeting to order. Can we have a roll call, please?
We do, ma'am.
Mr. Miller, you're on the pledge tonight.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Public comment? Okay, moving on to the consent items. Is there a motion for approval for the consent items?
A motion to approve.
A second.
Roll call.
Mr. Syverson?
Yes.
Mrs. Davis?
Yes.
Mrs. Dyer? Yes. Mr. Hederman?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mrs. Qualls?
Yes.
Mr. Sanopadre?
Yes.
Okay, new business, superintendent's report, Dr.
I
Hoffman.
have just a few brief items. Yesterday was the last day of school, as most of you are probably aware. Landmark's last day is June 1st. Our foundation, Education Foundation golf outing is coming up June 3rd at Plymouth Creek. So whether you play golf or not, please join us. It'll be a great day. If the weather is good, and it usually is. Our next board meeting is June 28th here at Central. We'll have closed session that night, and that's to approve closed meeting minutes. We have to do that periodically by law. And wanted to offer our congratulations to a Riverwood teacher. Her name is Laura Lenane. She was named the Home State Bank's Teacher of the Month for May.
I wish I had known that.
Yeah. So we'll add that to our website with all the awards.
It's on there on the front page.
It's on there already.
It
Wow.
is, sir.
Fantastic.
Any questions for Dr. Hoffman?
Did I send a Twitter out about it?
No, it hasn't been tweeted yet.
Oh, okay. Well, good.
Do we send her out a card?
We should send her something.
Yes,
Yeah, we should send her something.
she'll get a letter. Ellen will, or Josh will do a letter.
Okay, good.
And that's all.
Any questions for Dr. Hoffman? Okay, moving on to committee reports, building and transportation.
Building and transportation up tonight. We went over the asbestos abatement bids, and total bid amount is $108,355, and the low bidder was a Hollian asbestos removal. It was a little bit aggressive for them to complete all 3 schools in the summertime, so they're going to go ahead and do the Duker and the Valley View asbestos abatement, and then the loose companies would come out for recommendation on the Parkland bid.
Any questions for Mike?
Yes. Why did the loose companies one? Why Parkland did not? The one that was less of a difference.
I think Hollian had the lowest bid for Duker and Valley View.
So the difference between Polian and Lewis at Duker is less than the difference at Parkland.
I think it was based on the scope of work, in terms of what can be completed, how to break them apart, and it made more sense. If you're going to give one job to one contractor, it made more sense for that job to be at Parkland.
And looking at them, like the company that's got the lowest cost per day is the highest bid. So that's, and which school is the highest is different between the different companies. So I'm worried that some of them are not including everything that they need to be including, and that we're going to be using that $10,000 allowance. We've got a $10,000 allowance on each of these projects for extras or overs, and I'm worried that we're going to end up spending an extra 25 to 35% on each of these projects beyond what's being bid because they missed things when they were bidding it.
Not sure that that's true. We always put an allowance with any of our projects for unforeseen expenses. And with asbestos, once you get it into a job, you don't know what you're going to find. There could be more asbestos.
That's what asbestos is typically bid as per square feet of tile or feet of insulation.
And that's not what we wanted to do. That's very time critical. So we want people in and out. So that's why we're worried. We're looking at man hours versus linear feet or per square feet.
Because we could have bid it as square feet of tile or linear feet of pipe insulation, and still had the $10,000 allowance in there, and would have saved the same amount of time, but would have given us a more specific bid on what we were getting for that dollar amount.
I mean, the bid was put together by our asbestos consultant and also by our architect, so, I mean, they've got a lot of experience putting this together, so, you know, I really defer to them on that.
Any other questions for Mike? Eric, any other questions? Finance?
Finance, we review the financials. We have a couple things going on, or that we're looking at exploring later this year. First, our IRF, we have a $2.5 million unfunded liability for the district right now. We have an option to pay down and reduce future payments. We're looking at that right now, but we don't need to make a decision on that until the end of the calendar. We have until the end of the calendar year to do something like that. One of the things that we're exploring, it'll depend upon what we think the returns are on that. Is that it reduces future expenses, it reduces long-term expenses, we do something like that. We may be in a position to pay as much as $1 million down on the IMRF at the end of this year, and then maybe we can be looking at some type of paying an additional $250,000 a year to get the rest of that unfunded liability down. The returns potentially could be as high as 7.5%. I need to see why we get to that, but
No, that's an average for the pension plan.
that's the average.
That's the average over time, right?
Over what? Over the last 30 years, or?
Well, no, over the long horizon, that's what they're predicting. So the pension plan's predicting about a 7.5% return over really the course of 30 years.
Well, I guess, okay.
I mean, it's a pension plan, it's not just stocks, it's real estate, it's
No,
hedge funds,
I understand that.
it's whatever else, so.
So regardless, there's a potential, whatever the return is, bottom line is that paying down the unfunded liability costs us less money in the long term if we do it. It'll just be a question of what makes sense as we go forward. Additionally, we're looking at we're going to be having to increase our health insurance costs this year. Our renewal is up due to adverse experience this year. We are self-funded on our health insurance. This year, the previous 2 years have been pretty good, better than average. This past year was pretty bad. We're looking to lose maybe $1 million this year. And but even after the increase, we're looking at $1 million, potentially losing another $1.5 million next year. After a lot of negotiation on the whole thing, we're looking at a 12%. We've got it down to a 12% increase in premiums over the next year. Our ability to pass that along is really impacted by a couple of different things. The ACA and how that impacts our grandfathering status, because we currently have a grandfathered plan, and the teacher's contract both impact that. So while we can pass on can and have passed along increases to the family plans, we cannot pass along an increase to single payers, because that's how we negotiated the contract. So it's going to cost us a little bit more this next year. Just have to kind of wait, see where that whole thing goes. And then finally, there's a lot as we look at the financials. We're in good shape right now. However, there's a lot of issues with our what state monies we do get, general state aid and the other funds, and the budget impasse and who's playing chicken with that money. And so that's continues to be a risk for us. And that's it.
Any questions for Pat? Curriculum, Eric?
So we were updated on how some of the assessments went this year. Access changed this year, went to an electronic format, but we still stayed for the most part on par with what we've done in the past, as far as the percentage of kids exited from the program. Spark is getting smoother. We don't have results back from that yet. It'll probably be quite a while yet. This this year there was a science standardized test on 5th grade and 8th grade. And so they weren't planning for that to be implemented yet, but it is now. So we did a science assessment for 5th and 8th grade this year. We're updated on some of the committees of the administration and of the teachers, some of the things that they've been working on throughout the year. Improving the way that we assess students, standardizing some of the things that they do from between schools, and the big one was the update on what the para committee's been doing and how that evaluation is going to work. Brian has a document if you want to see what they're going to be using that lays it all out. And then we did the first reading of the revisions to the policies, and we moved the technology discussion to next month. If anybody wants to join us, hear about what's happening in technology. That was it.
Any questions for Eric? Thanks, Eric. Okay, next on the agenda is the approval for the abatement bid for Valley View, Duker, and Park Road. Can I have a motion for approval?
Motion to approve. I second.
Mrs. Davis?
Yes.
Mrs. Dyer?
Yes.
Mr. Hederman?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mrs. Pauls?
Yes.
Mr. Sanopadre?
Yes.
Mr. Syverson?
Okay, meeting adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.
Or don't take you tomorrow.
I guess it's.
Yeah,
I think
can
it's
you
because
do
I-
it?
He needs to read the motion.
Oh, I'm sorry. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
Sorry, Betty.
So moved.
Brian,
Sorry.
she can take
No,
it.
that's okay. Well, I know, normally I sign on those.
Yes.
That's why when I came in, I was sitting there, I feel like I keep